Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football on our new home of Football Daily. Yes, we have migrated over from Euro Football Daily. If you want more information about that, go check out the video we dropped on Euro Football Daily earlier this week. But it's the same lineup as ever. It's Henry Hill and Michael McCubbin. Patrick Van Straten stepped in last week. Excellent job. We'll get on to his work on big match predictions in due course. But let's quickly talk about the biggest topic of the week. Definitely, yesterday's news, McCubbs. Jude Bellingham. Real Madrid have supposedly agreed a deal to sign Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, mad. Second of all, though, if anyone isn't familiar with us, this is, Continental Club. We were over on Euro Football Daily before, we're now on Football Daily. I know there's a lot of crossover between the two channels, but for anyone who, wasn't familiar with Euro Football Daily's work before, Jude Bellingham to Madrid. I feel like if this happens, that he's made the right choice. I think just in pure fun terms, I think joining that Real Madrid side in terms of the players that they've signed over the last few years, that midfield, I know it's almost a bit bloated now with, 4 very, very good midfielders, all of whom are either kind of, top 5 midfielders in the world or have that kind of potential. But in some ways, I think it makes sense. Camavinga's been playing at left back a lot this season. Valverde has been playing a lot on the right wing. I think in some ways that's his best position, at least in terms of Real Madrid in big games. He's so useful there. And whoever, succeeds Carlo Ancelotti has got essentially the best midfield in world football for the next decade or so. And they probably had the best midfield in world football for the last decade. So pretty scary times for the rest of Spanish football. Quite scary times for the rest of the teams, hoping to win Champions Leagues in the next few years. But yeah, I kind of feel like I'm really happy for him if this goes through. I know Man City would have been an amazing move as well. Liverpool would have been amazing too. But I just think, Real Madrid, that the prestige of that club, he's the first English player to play for them since Beckham?
Yeah, must be.
Beckham. It's great. I think he'll have a great time there.
Fair enough. Yeah, following the footsteps. It should go through. Following in the footsteps of Michael Owen, Steve McManaman and David Beckham, as he says, along with other Englishmen, of course. Henry, do you think he's made the right call? Would you have done the same decision if he had?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, City is still cool, but I just, there's kind of to touch upon what McCubbin just said. Going to Real Madrid in what will be the new Bernabeu once it's complete. And you can just see that project rolling on for a long time. He's got an opportunity now to really cement himself in the history books of football because he's going there at such a young age, potentially as well. I don't remember an English guy so young to make such a big move to a European side like that. I mean, Beckham and Owen are already well established into their 20s, I think, in the Premier League. So, yeah, I think he's clearly a smart guy with smart people around him because there was talk that he would potentially stay at Borussia Dortmund for another season if he didn't get the right move. Clearly, Madrid have made up their mind and gone for him, and I think it's really smart because you can see Manchester City being interested in him too. But yeah, I think if you get the call from Real Madrid like that, if they're saying we're going to put up the money for you, bring you here, and you're going to be part of our midfield going forward, then what an opportunity. And he has a year or two still to learn under Toni Kroos and Luka Modric. I mean, what an apprenticeship that would be, considering he's basically been the kind of the leader in that Borussia Dortmund side. I don't see that Dortmund side. They potentially, they may win the Bundesliga this season. It'd be a lovely finish for him if he does. But I think his time there has weirdly run out of steam because I don't see them really pushing on next season if Bayern Munich get better. So yeah, I think this is a great move for him. It's an amazing move for English football, and I'm so excited to see what he could do because he could become a genuine legend if this all goes well.
He could. I'm really proud of the move. I think he's a phenomenal player, of course. I think he has played a lot of football for someone so young, which I do slightly worry about. I think Gavi, Pedri, Musiala, they are probably being overworked. And we haven't seen too many dips in his performances, but that's not to say that there won't be in the future due to this workload. Was it Real Madrid's crucial area to target this summer? Absolutely not, in my opinion. They probably needed a right back. They probably needed a long-term Benzema replacement. They probably needed to sort out the long-term future of their left-back role. But having said that, he's just an unbelievable player. And if it stops your closest rivals in the Champions League, be that Bayern, Man City, any other club that's going to emerge over the next 5 years as a potential European heavyweight, then I think it's probably worth doing. And I do get what McCubbs means, like the next manager after Ancelotti doesn't look like he's going to leave this summer anymore, but he will probably leave at the end of next year. You know, he's got so many options there, and Valverde is so good all across the park. Like, you could kind of put him in pretty much, 8 out of 11 positions.
I mean, Real Madrid in a year's time could just be a lot, Rodrigo might have established himself on the right wing, or at least him and Valverde might be, just interchanging. There's so much depth there. Potentially don't need another right-sided forward in that case. I mean, Fran Garcia's coming back to the club this summer, isn't he? So full-back positions should be less of a problem. And I guess, Eder Militao still developing in some ways, but the centre-back positions I think they've got more depth there than people give them credit for. Like, it's only really that Benzema replacement in the long term that's a real worry, I think, at Madrid. Obviously, I mean, in the short term, the full-back positions can be a lot better. Right back, Carvajal can't be starting at right back next year, but I think it's very exciting times for Real Madrid for sure.
I will say, I think they still turned a profit last year despite signing Tchouaméni, and they were prepared to spend that 200 million on Mbappe. So yes, this will probably be a transfer in the region of 100 million, but they've clearly got money to burn. I think we could see Real Madrid make big moves in the transfer market soon. Bear in mind, in 1 year's time, Eden Hazard's deal will be up, so they'll have that money in the bank. I think, Brahim Diaz, if they sell him, they could definitely get a good portion there. So
Asensio's contract.
Asensio, exactly. So although, yes, you're right, Dukes, this probably isn't the most important move, I still think then this is just the beginning of what is the next evolution of Real Madrid, and they could still make another 2-3 huge signings this summer and cement their status. And because they haven't, their season's sort of fizzling out a little bit in the league anyway. But I think it almost doesn't matter with everything that's going on in the Champions League as well. So, yeah, I think they're not finished. This is just the start.
Yeah, 100%. It will be absolutely fascinating to see how that develops. But today we're going to focus on the team that is almost definitely going to win the Scudetto. They are going to win the Scudetto. It might well have actually happened before this video goes live. It is, of course, Napoli. There is a little bit of a situation. We are filming this on a Wednesday. This video is now going out on Thursdays on Football Daily. Lazio are playing Sassuolo tonight. And if Lazio lose, then Napoli have already won the title. Napoli only need to get a point tomorrow from their match away at Udinese to be crowned champion. So we're hoping that this video will go live on the day that Napoli are crowned champions, but you might already be watching this and it has already been done. But it is an incredibly exciting time to be a Napoli fan. But before we get into what's gone on this season, Henry, and how they've won this Scudetto, let's talk a little bit about their background and recruitment, because they've been knocking on the door of doing this for a while, but they definitely don't have the history of some of the other Italian giants.
Yeah, it's true they don't. I mean, only ever won 2 Serie A titles in 87 and 1990. So, that's just a hot period in their history, obviously associated heavily with Maradona. Diego, exactly. And they do lag behind the others in terms of overall trophies. I mean, they've been fairly consistent in the Coppa Italia over the years. I think they've been there and thereabouts. But yeah, in recent times, we've seen different managers go there. Rafa Benitez, Carlo Ancelotti haven't been able to quite make it work. Maurizio Sarri was arguably the best manager they had there. Got to 91, 92 points?
91, I think, yeah.
91 under him there. Some really solid, beautiful football as well. And, they seem... What I will give Napoli consistent credit for is having sort of good people at the club. I mean, Aurelio De Laurentiis, love him or hate him, he's passionate about football and he's good at keeping players around and not being made a fool, let's say, in the transfer market and whatnot. And they seem to have always had really good sporting directors capable of building squads. We've had, we've seen evolution. They've had great sides over the years, although they haven't won loads of trophies. You think of the Cavani, Lavezzi, Hamšík era. I mean, then you had the Mertens coming in and Koulibaly as sort of the next generation. So yeah, they've always got sort of great squads. Insigne, exactly, in there too. And then once again, Cristiano Giuntoli, who's the current sporting director, he deserves huge credit once more for building this side. I think even choosing Spalletti once upon a time, and we'll get onto him in due course. But yeah, this summer, Napoli hit a bit of a sort of crossroads in their current history, because the side did need sort of rejuvenating. They had one of the oldest teams in Serie A, and they've managed to sort of slash that and slash the wage bill as well. They are proof that you can rebuild a squad and sort of make cuts at the same time. They did that really exceptionally well. So yeah, Koulibaly, I think his time was done. They moved him on obviously to Chelsea. Fabian Ruiz, who'd been a really important player in their midfield. Dries Mertens, their all-time top scorer by this point, off to Galatasaray. Insigne left. Ospina too, he'd been pretty solid in goal. Other players, Batagna, Al Nassr, Malki at 2. So that's huge. That's a lot of their big players in the squad being trimmed away. And I remember there was a moment where it didn't really look like they're having many players through the door. And even Spalletti was saying, I'm a bit worried about this, essentially. to paraphrase what he was saying in the media, it was, I remember seeing a stressed picture of Giuntoli with his slick back hair, just like smoking a cigarette. I'm thinking like, yeah.
Constantly calling.
Oh, God. But yeah,
but
they absolutely pulled it out the bag. I mean, it's just unbelievable, some of the signings they made. Khvicha, Kvaratskhelia, to take a chance on him at, 11 million euros. Obviously, Ruben Kazan had priced him much higher, but there's no success. Someone from the Russian league is going to come into Italian football and be a success. He then went to Dinamo Batumi in Georgia, lit up that division, no surprises there, and he's just been a revelation. I remember watching videos of him in pre-season thinking, hold on a second, he's got some serious moves. I mean, Kim Min-jae sort of probably plucked one of the star players out of the Turkish division once again. Doesn't always work, does it? How many times have we seen a Super League player come to the Premier League and it's just not really? I think Cenk Tosun is sort of the
classic.
The classic that stands out from that. Yeah, but he came over 18 million euros, absolute slip. Matias Oliveira, I really like him as
nearly got the Scudetto winning goal at the weekend.
Nearly, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ongisa too. I mean, I loved him already. I thought 16 million euros was a snit for him.
Do you feel a lot of pain when you watch Ongisa?
I don't really, because I actually think in the promotion, the season we went down the second time, I thought he was really good. I remember when we beat Leicester away, he was excellent, and he deserves that opportunity. He was playing well when he went to Villarreal. Yeah. On loan. He deserved to play for a bigger club, Fulham, certainly at that period in time. And yeah, I'm just pleased for him more than anything that he is fulfilling his potential, because certainly when he moved from Marseille to Fulham originally, it was a lot of like, this guy's a bit of a waste. But no, he's obviously fantastic. So yeah, they made a 30 million euro profit over the last 3 seasons. They really slashed the spending in that regards. But yeah, now got their team down to 26.1 years old. So it's been exceptional. And I've also got other guys like Giovanni, Simeone and Raspadori through the door.
Popped up at crucial points.
Simeone in particular went for that mad stage of just coming off and scoring goals. So yeah, I love what this side have done. They play beautiful football this season, and they're fully deserving of what should be their crown. I think they've looked a little bit nervy in recent weeks. If you watch the last 10 minutes of that game against Salernitana, it was a bit manic. It's just they do seem to be reverting to just give it to Khvicha at the moment and hope he gets the ball, gets the job done. Fortunately, they've got such a buffer and have been so impressive this season that's going to be fine. But yeah, there's so many individuals in that side that deserve huge credit. De Laurentiis, Giuntoli, and Spalletti as well, because what Spalletti has really rebuilt his. I don't know if his reputation was damaged, but he was a sort of a nearly man in many ways, certainly within the Italian game. But now he's written some wrongs, and he's a poetic guy. He seems like a really fascinating individual. And yeah, to take 2 years out of management, come back and do this, wow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, McCubbs, let's touch on Spalletti, because some of the viewers at Football Daily might not know that much about him, or before this season might not have known too much about him. But as Henry said, he's had a pretty interesting career path. Yeah, massively. I think as well, like in terms of the recruitment, I agree, Henry. Like, I think the risk-taking element of it, which is something that I think really draws me to this Napoli team. You know, like, yeah, even Ongisa, who was very impressive at Fulham, hadn't had the best time in the Premier League. You know, taking Ndombele on loan, and he's been all right. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think as well, like the Osimhen signing in 2020, like to spend that much during the pandemic on a striker who had one brilliant season in Liga, but had injury problems before that.
Malaria.
Yeah, like malaria. I mean, yeah. I don't know how crucial that was, but like had a pretty tough start to his career. And in many ways, just that mental toughness that he clearly possesses kind of actually embodies kind of Napoli in many respects. That team it's hardcore, and like physically has become very hardcore as well under Spalletti too. Like if you look at the spine of that team, they've been technically brilliant, but they have also been able to just like dominate teams in a physical sense as well. But yeah, on to Spalletti. I mean it's a weird one, is it? Because he's kind of been in and out of the limelight throughout his career, at least in the last kind of 15, 20 years. But he's been in management now for 30 years. He got his first job at Empoli straight after retiring in 1993. So he's now 64 years old. And Napoli's the 8th Italian club he's managed. This is going to be the first Scudetto that he's won. His only other league titles came with Zenit.
around the turn of the 2010s. But his first kind of big job where he got a lot of praise, I think, his first big job where he got a lot of attention was at Roma back in the 2000s. Got them to 2 consecutive Champions League quarterfinals. He won 2 consecutive Coppas Italia with them, and got them playing some great football. And I think this was where he kind of first gained a reputation for really getting the most out of it as attackers, like Francesco Totti, I think in 06-07, had his best scoring season ever. He won the European Golden Shoe. But then, like you're saying, Henry, always been seen as a bit of a nearly man. That spell in charge of Roma was also, when they lost 7-1 to Man United in the Champions League quarterfinals. Very kind of,
I remember that.
And they were 2-1 up from the first leg, I believe.
So when Michael Carrick scored that unbelievable goal.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, opened the scoring. Yeah, and Alan Smith as well, back from his leg break.
Smudge.
Lee Leverett also scored a rare goal in that game as well. But enough of that. But that kind of, he kind of became known as the manager who oversaw that defeat, especially when they'd been winning from the first leg. And so I think that's kind of always tapped a bit as the narrative with him. Like, he returned to Roma for one season in 16-17 and did an amazing job with them. Like, I don't know whether they're top scorers in the league, because obviously Sarri's Napoli were around then as well. But got Salah, that move to Liverpool. I think he got 15 goals and 11 assists that season. Edin Dzeko scored more goals that season than anyone had done in Roma history. So, like, he's always been a really exciting manager, but just without the silverware to back it up. We went to Inter from there, and Inter looked like pretty decent challengers in terms of the kind of investment that they were putting in. I think it was when Sterling had just bought them, or maybe
Icardi had a really good year under him.
He did. And then again, problems with Icardi then were a bit of a stain on his Inter days. His second season wasn't particularly good, was it? And again, actually, in the second spell at Roma, there was kind of trouble with Totti, and that was a bit of a stain on his time there. So I feel like he's had kind of maybe a bit of bad luck at points, off the field things, and certain results just not going his way. But ultimately, he has always been a very interesting manager, someone who's always looked to really make his stamp on a club. And like the job that he's done with Napoli, especially in Napoli, where he's had to transition this team very, very quickly between 2 seasons. It is mad, and taking over a side that was still kind of living in the wake of Sarri. Gattuso, I think, did an all right job there, but they weren't in the Champions League for 2 years. He'd been out of work for that time. They just hadn't. They needed renewing. They needed rejuvenating. It didn't really happen in that first season, and then last year, it was tasked with, the club losing its modern greats, all of its modern greats pretty much, and then bringing in new players, many of whom were fairly unknown. And had his car stolen this first season as well, which was pretty mad.
I remember reading about it. Was it a Fiat Punto?
Yeah, well, no, I don't. It might have been. I think it was a Fiat for sure.
Yeah. They stole his Fiat. Give it back.
But they stole it. I think it might have been early in the season, and then gave him a note basically saying, if you leave the club, we'll give it back. So not the most popular with all of the fans, at least. But the fact that there was uncertainty, over his abilities even after his first season, when he did shore up the defence, that they were playing like fairly decent stuff, and to have come into this season. The thing is, like, none of us were expecting it. Last summer
I didn't have them in my top 4.
Yeah, I didn't have them in my top 4 either. It seemed like the only way was down, and yet produced one of the best seasons we've seen in Italian football recently. And it must be said, even his first season, they won 8 games on the bounce. It looked like they could have actually pushed on, and it just wasn't quite enough. But he just plays really exciting attacking football. He's got a really strong spine there, and ultimately has kind of conjured this kind of team spirit that all great Napoli sides have had. Takes
a special person to manage Napoli sometimes, because it's obviously one one club city. It's a very, very passionate football city, and not everyone can. As I've said, the previous managers that tried and failed there, you can be the best manager in the world and go there, but if you don't sort of connect, if you don't get your team to connect with the fans and try and understand like the Neapolitan way of life, I mean, it's kind of similar in the way that certain managers probably suit Athletic Club Bilbao, because it's just the relationship that they have with their team there. It's just, it takes a special manager to go there, and I think Spalletti just fits. It just makes sense for that team at that time, and he's just managed to get this team fully buying into the concept of what it means to play for Napoli. So I think that's a remarkable skill in itself. Sorry, McCubbin.
No. That's pretty much what I was going to say. It was interesting about recruitment, actually. I was reading earlier about how, how they attract players to Napoli, and I think what's the island off the coast? Capri. Yeah, they take kind of players there.
What's the clubs?
No, I think that I'm not sure. Maybe,
they
just take
Capri was a party island.
No. Maybe there's a party side of it, but they take players there, and I guess that's part of the thing. It's just like, look at how beautiful this place is. So yeah, I think it's in terms of their recruitment in that sense, there's clearly a kind of well-trodden path in terms of how to attract players to the city, and especially now that it has become, over the last 10 years, a real springboard for players. I know the likes of Koulibaly stayed there for a long, long time, but
maybe too long.
Potentially. But there is a sense of, if you go to Napoli, you can really become a star. And look at the way that Osimhen has become immortalised at the club, and I mean this entire team will be. It all just feeds into the success that they've enjoyed this year. But yeah, I mean Spalletti, like tactically, I think has been excellent as well. I think they just needed that little bit of refresh. It wasn't like he was coming into a team that's been playing like rubbish football over the years, because I don't think Gattuso really changed them that much, but they did just play within themselves a little bit more, I think, under him. But whereas this team right now, it's not SERIE football, but it's basically as exciting as what SERIE football was in many respects, at least in terms of the speed, in terms of the intensity with which they play.
Yeah, for sure. And they've done well, because they were so far ahead at January, and there was a little bit of a wobble in the early stretches of this calendar year. And it hasn't been perfect this calendar year, but they've done easily enough to get over the line. And I thought at some stages that their biggest enemy might be sort of internal issues. There's been an argument between two ultras groups about De Laurentiis, and De Laurentiis is obviously an incredibly volatile guy as well. He sacked Ancelotti pretty much after making them go on a boot camp. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. Which was absolutely mental. He made the players all go on a boot camp away from their families for 2-3 days. And Ancelotti basically stuck up for the players, then ended up being fired. It was super, super dramatic. So Spalletti's done very well to manage up and down. And he's got his methods across really, really well. I mean, they went from the 5th worst pressing side in Serie A last year to the 2nd best. They now dominate possession. They're incredibly good at making interceptions and, hemming sides in the opposition half, much like Arsenal have done really effectively this year. And I think he's got a lot out of players that were struggling beforehand. It's not just the new signings, like Giovanni Di Lorenzo, I think, has been one of the best right-backs in Serie A for a while, but Mario Rui's career wasn't really going anywhere. Hirving Lozano had struggled, really, to consistently exert much impact as well. And someone like Anguissa and Lobotka have suddenly become this unbelievable duo with Zielinski in front. And Zielinski has slightly faded towards the end of the campaign, but I still think it's a really impressive tactical work from him. And obviously, it goes without saying, we do need to talk about the two main men, Khvicha and Osimhen as well. 33 goals and 14 assists between them. I mean, that's the sort of stats that will live in infamy. They'll talk about that in 50 years' time this season. And they're incredibly, robust. They're good at set pieces as well. They've scored 16 goals from set pieces. No side in Europe's top 5 leagues have got close to them. They're also really good at defending them. I think Kim Min-jae's a massive part of that. So good in the air. Only Athletic Club and Barca have conceded fewer than their 3 set pieces. And they are just a side that seems in perfect unison with each other, the way they counter-attack really effectively, the way they can sustain possession and pressure. We saw them destroy Liverpool in the Champions League. We saw them destroy Ajax. Ajax aren't a great side this year by any stretch of the imagination, but they easily dispatched Frankfurt in the last 16. I think they were quite unlucky against Milan, particularly in that first leg, as we talked about in so many of our shows over on Euro Football Daily. But Henry, let's quickly touch on some of their key men, and whether you think, maybe a better question is, do you think Napoli can sustain this next year? Because we saw Inter have a very good year in 2021, haven't managed to back that up. Milan haven't managed to back up their success last year. Do you see Napoli? Is this a long-term domination period?
Yeah, absolutely. As we said, they've turned a profit over the last 3 years in terms of transfer money they've earned. And this is going to be the biggest bumper year ever in terms of the revenue they'll be gaining from winning the league, from qualifying into the Champions League again. So they're in a pretty handsome position. And then I do think Osimhen is probably going to leave. That looks like the most likely one. Kvaratskhelia, he's got 4 years left on his deal. I think to quote De Laurentiis, "Stop busting my balls over a new contract." That's what he said. He was like, he doesn't need. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. It looks like he'll probably have his deal extended at some point. But yeah, Osimhen, they've been so fortunate that this season he's been around a lot longer. He's been injured, obviously, as we were saying, past few seasons, but he's shown how important he is. I think as long as they can replace him effectively, then I think it's going to be okay. And there are strikers out there who will, as you said, will look at Napoli and think, yeah, you know what, I would like to go there. I could go and be a success there. Jonathan David, maybe.
I was just thinking Jonathan
Bellingham. I think they will have the ability to go and spend 50, 60, 70 million. Well, I don't think they'll go to 70 million again. I think about 60 million certainly. They could go and get someone very, very decent and take them to Napoli to sort of hold up that attack next season, because I don't think much of the team is going to change that much. They need to make sure Spalletti's around in the sort of the long-term future there. And yeah, I think they've got a great spine which they can build. And I think other areas of the squad could use improvement, maybe another centre-half, maybe a bit more depth at the full-back positions, and Dembele's on loan, so they'll need another midfielder through the door there. So yeah, I think it will be sustainable. Losing Osimhen is going to be tough, but I actually think if you look at the way they play, Osimhen doesn't touch the ball a whole lot. No. They rely very heavily on the wide men. That's what they're quite effective with. It's sort of isolating the fullbacks one-on-one with their wide men, and then Osimhen is very much that predator guy. So if they can get someone else in to kind of fulfill that role, then because they don't need a striker that's there to do everything, do they? No. They just need a striker who can sort of get on the end of the amazing creators which they have in that team. So that's where I'm really excited to see what will happen. I'd almost like to see someone like Zaha go there. I saw him linked to Marseille. I think that'd be quite fun. But yeah, it's. I'm confident that this Napoli side isn't going to be a flash in the pan. I think this could go on for a bit longer.
Fair enough.
I mean,
an agreement?
I don't know. I kind of feel like I'd be more worried. Well, in some ways, I feel like Kim Min-jae, just because that release clause might be more likely to leave. And I agree, in some ways, he'd be harder to replace, just because he's been such an instant hit there. Centre backs always a little bit more risky. I know that. Like their defensive structure in general has been great this year. Like it can't just be put down to him. But in some ways, that attack is more adaptable. Having said that, Osimhen and Khvicha have an amazing partnership up top, and Osimhen is also. I know he doesn't get on the ball that much, but he is really important to their press. Like he is a workhorse. Like he does bully centre backs when they're in possession, as well as when when he's kind of bearing down on them, and that's been so key to them winning possession in the opposition third. I think like a ton of the goals that they've scored have come from the high press, and they're pretty much the hardest pressing team in Italy. So that would be you need to get a centre forward in who is willing to do that kind of work, and there are more centre forwards around now who are willing to do that. And also, I mean, they do have two centre forwards on the books at this moment in time. I know they're only loan signings, but I forget what the conditions are for Simeone and Raspadori.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
But I imagine they're in a good, whatever they are, I imagine they're in a pretty good negotiating position. I feel like Raspadori must have at least an option to buy in there, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have that at my fingertips at the moment. But I would be a little bit more worried about Kim Min-jae. But I think this Napoli team can definitely go on and achieve more. I think partly because the rest of Serie A, that there are still question marks over a lot of those clubs. Like, how much stronger are Milan going to be next year? How much stronger are Inter? Are Inter going to be stronger or weaker next year?
Definitely.
Juventus, obviously, question marks over, what they're going to be allowed to do in the transfer markets. I know that the points deduction has been rescinded for now, but there's still a lot of question marks over the future of Juve. Atalanta, I feel like there is a lot of room for growth at Atalanta. They could, they've got themselves back into the top four race as well. Lazio, very, very old squad.
Seriously old squad.
I feel,
Fun,
yeah, they've been great, and Sarri's done a good job there. But like, yeah, they don't, there doesn't seem to be that much sustainable growth there, at least in the long term. And then Roma, question marks over Mourinho's future. Still feel like they're feeling their way a little bit in terms of their long-term strategy. So like in terms of like a spine of a team which is still relatively young and is fully tapped into the manager and is now going to have a serious trophy to show for it as well. Like I feel like the next 5 years could be really bright for Napoli, but they just have to keep on going on the same course. And just hope that it doesn't blow up in any kind of negative way. Like just try and keep Spalletti on side for as long as possible.
Henry?
No, I mean, it's worth noting this year it was a perfect storm for Napoli to head towards the title with the kind of problems that the other teams have faced. But yeah, you're right, as you were saying. I was just thinking if they play their cards right this summer and bring in the right faces, they could actually cement a sort of top spot in Serie A, certainly for a few years, which is very exciting because if Roma get Champions League, then I think we could see something very exciting from that side, certainly this summer. AC Milan, once again, I think they're just a few pieces away from being quite exciting. But yeah, Inter, Juve, the rest of them, Lazio, very aging squad. It's not set in stone that they're going to be able to keep going at the rate they're going now. So yeah, you're right. I think Napoli have an opportunity here to create a legacy.
And I think also it's easy to kind of view Napoli in terms of like the last 4 years, where this has been their only truly successful season, and what an amazing season it is, like completely historic first league title in 33 years. But like we do really have to look at the last 10 years, don't we? And I know we've spoken about it a bit, but like if Juve weren't as ridiculously strong as they were in the mid to late 2010s, then they probably would already have at least one, maybe two Scudetti, under Maurizio Sarri, and one of those, in a season where they were kind of breaking all sorts of records and were playing like super amazing football, had one of the best attacks in Europe. So like that really did form the backbone to what we're seeing now, I think. And so they're getting their reward. They're getting it quite late, and I feel that this title is I wouldn't want to take away from this Napoli team, but like I think Napoli fans will want to dedicate this title as much to Hamsik and Dries Mertens and the rest, and Insigne and Koulibaly. Like they more than played their part in the trajectory that Napoli have been on and what has led to this point.
Yeah, 100%, because you don't attract the players they attracted last summer with the talent level that they've shown this year, unless there was some history or recent history to back it up on. I kind of agree with you guys. I think the state of the rest of the teams around the top six and the sort of question marks around Roma, etc., mean that they could well win the title next year. I do slightly worry though, because we have seen sides like Leicester and Lille consistently sell their best players, and it's very difficult to sustain success. But if it's only Osimhen leaving this summer, then maybe they will be able to.
And it's De Laurentiis, isn't it? Like he can do it. He can keep them. He does keep them.
He's a wheeler dealer. Guys, that is our take on Napoli and how they won the Scudetto this season. Hopefully it's been announced by now. If not, it will be coming soon tonight with their fixture against Udinese. Let's move on to our big match predictions. Welcome back to Big Match Predictions, the section of the show where we pick out 3 of the biggest games coming up in Europe that weekend, and we've got an ongoing leaderboard. We didn't do it properly last week because it was just Pat and McCubs, but the scores on the doors are as follows. I'm on 56, Henry's on 46, and McCubs is on 39. And the last time we did this, the 3 of us, we predicted Dortmund versus Eintracht. That just ended up with 1 point to McCubs and myself, who correctly backed Dortmund for the win. You get 1 point for a correct result. You get 3 for a perfect score. Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid. No points to any of us.
No.
None of us backed the Barcelona 1-0, which seems very obvious now. It always does in reflection. Juventus versus Napoli was 1 point to me. I was the only one that saw Napoli winning. So the scores are going into this week. I'm on 58, Henry's on 46, and McCubs is on 40. If you want to know the scores of last week as well, Pat actually beat McCubs 4-1.
Yeah.
He got a perfect score in Roma versus Milan, which brings us on perfectly to the first game. We've got Roma versus Inter Milan this weekend. Saturday, 5 p.m, 6th versus 4th. They are separated only by goal difference, with Inter on plus 19, Roma on plus 14. Henry, your boys Roma, Mourinho, big game against his former club.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are they getting the W, as the kids say?
Absolutely. That's that top 4 race is wild, isn't it? Now Juve are back in it. It's really, I don't actually think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to lose 15 points, basically play carefree, and then be given your 15 points back.
It does completely change the psyche of every game.
I think it's mental that that's happened this season. So I feel a bit sorry for the other teams that have been sort of under the genuine stress of having to be in that battle. And yeah, for Roma, I mean, last week against Milan, to score, to Abraham, great goal, finally playing some good football again, proper celebrations. What was it, 91st minute?
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
And then to go and concede, cross into the box, no one marking Salamakers at the back post.
Such an easy goal.
Yeah, it's poor. It's really, really poor. And and then Inter, we're seeing them turn it on at the moment. Really good win against Lazio. Really convincing. Absolutely battered them across the park. Should have won by about 6. In all honesty, it was that good.
Goal for offside.
Lukaku's playing well again as that link-up play. Yeah. It's exciting to see once more. But yeah, at home, I think they have to win this, Roma. I think the stadium's going to be bouncing once more. But Milan are good, aren't they? Oh, this is tricky. Inter are good. This is a tricky one. I'm going to go for 2-1 Roma. I'm going to back Roma to get the job done because Inter have Champions League to think about and they may rest a player or two. They do, you're correct. But nonetheless, day difference or maybe 2-day difference. I'm going to go 2-1 Roma.
Fair enough. I mean, my biggest prediction for this game is that at least one member of playing staff or support staff is going to be sent off for Roma.
Probably.
I think they've had 11 red cards between players and staff this year, which is mental. I mean, most of those are staff, granted. Macabs, do you see the same future as Henry, or are you backing Inter?
I might not back either of them. I kind of feel like this is destined for a draw again. I know, like, Inter are not... I feel like last week it felt like a low-scoring game, going into it just because, Milan and Roma both relatively defensive, counter-attacking sides. But... yeah, I think this is going to be a draw. I feel like Inter are the better team at the moment, but I feel like the home advantage will favour Roma, so I'll go 1-1 actually. Yeah,
I would say Smalling is a big miss at centre half for Roma. He really is their leader essentially in the defence. So yeah, him not being there, they've hit the post so many times this season as well. But yeah, no. Smalling being it could be a big miss. Yeah,
no Wijnaldum either. No Matic, who's suspended. No Belotti, Kumbulla, Llorente. Diego Llorente, of Leeds. I forgot. I didn't realise he was at Roma.
He went there in January.
Mad. I don't think he's really played at all. Anyway, he's out, which is a huge miss. But for Inter... Yeah, I think it's nice seeing Lukaku actually show a bit of form again, just at the crucial point of the season. I think Milan will generally be a bit worried about him, to be honest. But... yes, a little bit too late, really. They've left so much to do in Serie A. Both of these teams have. It's really on a knife edge. In terms of this one, I think Inter might get over the line. I'm actually going to go 1-0 Inter Milan. I don't think it's actually going to be a thriller, but it's going to be very, very tight.
I might actually change mine to 2-1 if that's all right. I was just thinking.
I think
to Inter. Yeah,
I
just kind of feel. I don't know. You've kind of convinced me with that. I just feel like that Inter attack it's just popping a little bit more at the moment. Yeah, I'm going to say
a late change from the Cubs. That is allowed.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on to the second games. Lens versus Marseille, Saturday, 8 p.m. Third versus second, 1 point between them. Again, really tight in the table. Both of them look like they've got Champions League football now, the Cubs. But with the way PSG are playing, the winner of this carries a little bit of momentum into the final 5 or 4 or 5 games or so. Because PSG are only 5 points ahead, I think.
Yeah, I think it's Marseille, right, who are 5 points behind now. I mean, good win over... Auxerre, like they should have obviously won that game, but great goals from Sanchez and Under in that game. But I mean, the thing is, PSG that the circus kind of rolls on. The Messi thing, the latest, that 2-week ban for going to Saudi Arabia.
What was he thinking?
I mean, you say that, but then he's, it's kind of the stars at PSG have generally been able to kind of do what they want, haven't they? Like, it kind of sets a precedent for that kind of behaviour, I think. Not that,
it's not a great leader, though,
not
a great leadership moment.
Not that I excuse it, but I mean, this is, but they should expect this from Messi. He is a superstar, and he's generally got what he wants throughout his career. Like, I'm not overly surprised that he did that. Like, yeah, definitely not the right thing to do, but I'm not really surprised. And yeah, what a way to probably end your PSG career. Pretty sour note. But having said that, they've got Troyes on the weekend. They've got a pretty easy run in. Still expect them to win the title because, I mean, this game is going to probably count one of these sides out of the title race. And then, yeah, there just hasn't been, none of the chasing pack have had the kind of consistency. You know, like Marseille are second, 5 points behind PSG, and yet there have been like 3-4 week periods of this season where they have not looked good by any stretch of the imagination. They've been really
been a couple of them,
cold. And yet they do have, you know, a lot of weapons there. I feel like that's why I might back them for this game. Like I said, like Sanchez and Under scoring on the weekend. Under's now got 3 in his last 3, I think. I just think that this Marseille side is still a pretty exciting attacking outfit. So yeah, I'm gonna go for them. I'll say 2-1 to Marseille.
2-1 to Marseille. Henry?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to take a slightly different tone. What an amazing season for Lens. I mean, what an absolutely spectacular season. I agree with you. Marseille, more than anyone, I'm like, how have they not, with the players that they've got, been able to try and grab the initiative and close the gap on PSG? But Lens, I don't think you can expect too much of them. They've been exceptional this year with a budget which will be probably half the size of these other two clubs. So, yeah, they're in good form themselves. 6 wins out of their last 7. Only defeat coming against PSG. Seko Fofana been brilliant. 4 goals, 4 assists this season. Absolutely love this guy. Top 4% of midfielders for shots, progressive carries, successful take-ons. Just really, really exceptional midfielder. And then, Luis Openda just keeps scoring. Just keeps scoring at the moment. We sang his praises on Continental Club the other day, and he's just still going strong, scoring week in, week out at the moment. So, yeah, absolutely love it. For those reasons, I'm going to go for a Lens home victory. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory at home. Why not?
Oh, love it. Okay, bit of a shock one there from Henry. Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
they're in good form though, to be fair, and they are at home. Like, I wouldn't be that surprised if that came off. I did forget that I think they've lost. I think that they've been unbeaten aside from that PSG game since like February or something.
Yeah,
so
it's a long old time, and very good defensively as well. I think they've got one of the better defenses in Europe. They're like up there with the normal teams behind Barcelona. As if, in that chasing pack, as it were. Marseille, I think Igor Tudor deserves some respect. I know they've had a couple of odd patches as well, but they're currently on track for 80 points, which is 9 more than last year, which is pretty impressive considering they don't really have an actual goal scorer in their side since Milik left for Juve. Milik, by the way, took a horrendous penalty against Bologna at the weekend. Did you see?
I did.
It was so bad. I don't know why you risk it if you're that penalty taker. Just go up and smash the ball. Like, you can only really lose with a penalty, and doing this stupid run-up. Oh, what was he thinking? Anyway, he's generally been all right. But anyway, I'm getting off track now. Lens versus Marseille. I think this is 1-1, to be honest. I think this is just a draw. Right, let's move on to Dortmund versus Wolfsburg. Sunday, 4:30pm. 2nd versus 7th. 15 points between them. Henry, Dortmund last weekend.
Yeah.
They are up, they are down. And last weekend, they were potentially robbed of a penalty as well.
Potentially, but
you've got to beat Bochum.
You still have got to beat Bochum. I mean, Bayern Munich keep throwing them a bone. It's unbelievable. They keep saying go on, and they can't get the job done. I have to say, a good save from the Bochum keeper, from Jude Bellingham at the end. But come on, guys, they've got 5 games. They had 5 games to get this done, and it's not the most impossible running in the world. And actually, Bayern Munich have got a lot of the relegation fodder who actually they'll be up for it. Like, I can't guarantee that Bayern Munich are going to go win 5 games in a row.
Schalke, haven't they?
Certainly in their current form. But yeah, Dortmund, you do just have to beat Bochum. But that aside, I do think that it's quite convincing the way that they've been playing. They have been sort of the last 2 games. They've really gone out and tried to batter their opposition. So I think they will get the job done against Wolfsburg. I don't really think have much to play for this season. They looked like they were going to be in sort of within Europa League contention at one point, but they've dropped off a bit. But I think Kovac can be relatively happy with his first season back at Wolfsburg. So yeah, I think that they will go again next season. Unbeaten in their last 3-2, so no bad form either. But on this one, I'm going to go for a 3-1 Dortmund victory. I think they will sort of right some wrongs of recent weeks.
Yeah, I'd love to see it as well. Adeyemi's in such good form. Daniel Marlen's been brilliant recently. I think he became the first Dutch player to score in 4 consecutive Bundesliga games, I saw the other week as well, which is brilliant. But maybe it says more about the lack of Dutch proficiency in the Bundesliga, which is kind of random.
Well, Weghorst would have had that at Wolfsburg.
Big Voot.
Ian Robben as well.
Ian Robben, yes, that is surprising. Maybe he was the youngest Dutch player to ever score in 4. I'm doubting myself now.
Scoring 4 games in a row is still quite an unusual thing to do.
I think Ian Robben must have done that, but maybe he didn't.
He was
Correct
made
me
of
in the
glass,
comments.
wasn't he?
Either way, this is
He was
true.
made of
Did he
glass.
ever play 4 games in a row? McCubs, your thoughts on this one? I'm actually going to jump in now. I'm just going to go 2-0 Dortmund.
Yeah, fair.
What are you thinking?
I just came into my head as well. Roy Mackay, he was a pretty big Dutch goal
Big
scorer
Roy.
in the Eredivisie. There's actually been tons. I mean, there's been so many Dutch, great.
But
Dutch
mainly
players.
Big Voot.
Yeah, mainly Big Voot. I feel like the way that this title race has gone, Dortmund will win this game. I feel like they
I thought you meant win the league.
But I feel like they will win this game. Like it feels like they kick themselves and they put in a really convincing display and win their next game. And invariably, Bayern might draw this weekend again, or they might win. But I'm gonna say 2-0 is a good one. I'll say 3-1 to Dortmund.
Oh, joining me, are you?
Oh, is that what you said? Okay, cool.
You gonna ramp it up?
I'll go 3-2 then.
Oh, it's gone for a bonus
For a
point.
bonus point. You get a bonus point if you go with 5 goals.
I just hope Dortmund, because Bayern Munich play Leipzig in the second to last game. I just hope Dortmund are in a position where a victory in that game against Werder against Augsburg can take them top, because I think Leipzig will be bang up for that if they know victory over Bayern could hand the title to someone else. I think everyone wants to see
and
Bayern
they're over
lose.
top 4 as well, aren't they, Leipzig? I mean, they've got a real shout of top 4 still. So
they just need to be in a position to capitalise there. But yes,
Yeah, I think Bayern beat Werder Bremen, but it's that game against Schalke and it's that game against Leipzig that could potentially cause an issue. I mean, Schalke, massive club, obviously. Have had terrible last few years, but that could potentially be an absolute bear pit. I'm not actually sure whether that's away or at home. I don't see Köln in the last day causing them any issues, whereas Mainz have had a better season, but again, could be on the proverbial beaches by then. So it's got to be those 2 games if Bayern are going to, slip here with Schalke or Leipzig, in my opinion. But in this game, I think Dortmund are going to get over the line, as I said. Guys, thank you so much for watching Continental Club for this week. It's the first ever, I should say, on Football Daily. We've covered Jude Bellingham. We've covered Napoli. We've done big match predictions about all the biggest games. And if you are concerned that we won't be covering European football going forward on Football Daily, fear not. We will be doing plenty of European football, plenty of Champions League coverage, plenty of shorts. You will see plenty of us, so do not worry about that at all. McCubs, what would you like to push to?
Oh, yeah. And also, I think, in terms of our content in general, I think because Euro Football Daily has moved over to Football Daily, I think you'll see more European coverage across other videos that we do.
Yes.
Football Daily was very Prem focused because we needed to keep
the difference.
We needed to keep the difference, and we needed to cover all of European football on Euro Football Daily. And so, I think our content will, in general, naturally become more varied in that sense. On our other videos, explains, for example, you will see, European-based explains on Football Daily. But where should we go next? Go and check out Sunday Vibes if you haven't already. They did quite an interesting one about players who should leave their club this summer, or who might leave their club this summer. And I believe Pat was acting as the super agent, brokering deals for these
I can see
players.
him in that role. Actually.
It went down really well. Go and check that out if you haven't already.
Nice. Any messages from you, Henry?
Yeah, if you're missing EFD already, go check out the relegation playoff between Sam and I for Stat Wars, edited by Dougie. Good fun. What a way to send off Stat Wars on EFD.
Yeah, I mean, Stat Wars will be back on Football Daily for next season. And also, go check out that content on Euro Football Daily. It's not going anywhere. You can go rewatch all of it.
Go and check out the Inter explained from the weekend. That was really good.
Very relevant as well. Coming up before the Milan derby semi-finals next week. Absolutely cannot wait for that, guys. Thank you so much for watching Football Daily's Continental Club, and we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.